We haven't done a reaction to a Douglas Murray video in a very long time, so I'm excited today to take a look at this debate that Douglas Murray did. I'm Tall the Traveling Clad, your favorite sweet Zionist prince. Please go be a sweet Zionist prince or princess. Down below, in the description down below at thetravelingclad.com, you can get some merchandise with this on it. And let's jump right into this clip.
Is there an over-exaggeration, Douglas, do you think, in the West, this fear of Islam or anything that looks so different to us?
No, I mean, the society I'm from is one of the most pluralistic and diverse societies on earth. You couldn't get a larger range of people of different backgrounds and ethnicities and languages than you have in Britain.
And
which
it's
is why, once again, if I may push back against this thing you are pushing, which is that these are sort of uniquely bigoted, unwelcoming societies.
Not at all.
The evidence on this part of the stage would suggest that Britain is not.
When you said the developing world cannot move to the developed world, you seem to conveniently forget that the developed world moved to the developing world without asking permission.
No, I don't. I don't.
It seems to me as well that this is a particularly Western-centric viewpoint, and a misleading one at that, because you know as well as I do, and the figures show it, 85% of the world's refugees, in fact, settle in neighboring countries in the Middle East,
Sure.
in Africa and Asia. They do not rush over to Europe.
Sure. You'd make a big mistake if you think I hadn't heard of colonialism.
You don't seem to address it in any
I'd
way.
also suggest, by the way, that I don't know how long we're going to go on about colonialism for. I'm happy to do it as long as you like. But let me
don't we
just
have to be factful, though?
Well,
don't we have to be
But also, don't think,
careful about
don't
facts,
think, if I
about
may say
history?
so, that colonialism was just a Western thing. What was one of the largest and most significant empires in history but the Ottoman Empire? Do we say that Turkey has to do something like the West to deal with
That's
Islam?
not the issue. You
brought up colonialism.
You are talking about the Western view that they should stay where they belong.
I'm saying that it seems to me to be much wiser that if you have a very large humanitarian crisis in, for instance, Syria, you try to make sure that people remain in the area. This isn't say all of them, but it is more likely. I absolutely agree they do. I've seen it firsthand.
Look at Turkey, 3.5 million refugees. Look at Lebanon and Jordan per capita.
What
the
I'm
countries that have
suggesting
the
to you
most. In
is-
fact, in Lebanon, you've got 1 in every 4 person living in that country is a Syrian refugee.
Absolutely.
So to suggest they're not doing very much is just being misleading,
Believe
being
me,
dishonest.
Believe me, I'm not being misleading. And I said from the outset that I agree with the point that most refugees remain in the area. And I said that I think that that's a good idea. I'm suggesting to you that I think it's better that people, for instance, fleeing Syria, end up in the countries around Syria in order to be able to return to their country than putting them in
But
Norway.
they will return. You are suggesting that they don't want to return. Who, in their right
I'm not
mind, if
suggesting
they
they
had
don't
the
want to
option,
return. When did I
and
say
we will
that?
hear from a refugee, if they had the option to return, of course they'd want to return.
I didn't say they wouldn't.
They leave everything behind. But you seem to also be oblivious to another important fact that I just want to throw at you before we go to a video clip that I want to show you. It's, what about the moral responsibility, though, of Western countries that have contributed to the destabilization of the region, the meddling, the military interventions, not to mention the arms sales that continue as we speak? What about
Do you want me to answer that? Okay, I'll answer that one frankly. Nobody denies, for instance, the disaster of Iraq. But who are the people who intervened most in Syria?
Isn't just
Hang
Iraq.
on. Let me answer it. Who intervened most in Syria? It wasn't America. It wasn't Britain. It's Iran, Russia. It's, among others, countries, including the one we're in and others
You're
around
deflecting.
the Gulf
Before
here.
we got to
Let's
Syria,
face
we
it,
had
that
Iraq, we had Libya, we had many
countries in this
instances.
neck of the woods were much more involved in the Syrian civil war than my country was.
Well, you're also
so do
pouring
you want to
money
take
at
some
it, aren't you?
responsibility for that? Do
I
you want to take
think-
more
I think
refugees
blame
here
can
in Qatar?
certainly
Do you
can
want to
go
take
around.
more in the Gulf?
No one
Right.
is immune to any sort of criticism.
well,
but we're talking
I'm
about
glad to
the
hear it.
Western countries, the British countries, the British
What did Britain
Hold on,
do
hold
in
on.
Syria?
We're talking about these governments that you seem to suggest should be immune.
No,
or
when
should
did I
be
suggest that?
absolved of any
When
responsibility.
did I suggest
It's
that?
rich, by the way, that she's saying he's deflecting. She's literally, all she's doing is deflecting.
I want to get to the other point that you make, and it's an important one, Douglas Murray. You suggest that we need to actually balance between two very important virtues, two important concepts of mercy toward the refugee and justice towards your own citizens. Let's take a quick look at this instance involving refugees.
Do you send anyone for us? We are the Syrians, about 300.
Sir, I give you the number of Malta authority because you are near Malta.
Hello.
Yes.
About 100 children and 100 women and maybe 100 men. Please hurry. Water is coming into it. The boat is going down. We are dying. 300
Yes, you
children.
have called Malta. You have called Malta.
Don't throw us. You can run away.
Call Malta. Call Malta.
I have no enough account on the mobile. It will cut. Please You have my number now. You call me you, please.
That was twice as close to an Italian island as it was to Malta. But again, this idea that, you know, we have to safeguard our values, where does mercy fit in that?
Hold on, I have to pause real quick this debate. One, by the way, every single Arab country, without fail, every single Muslim country would have let that ship sink. They would have allowed it to sink. And based on the track record of how Muslims in the West, refugees, asylum seekers or not, have behaved, there is no credible reason you should expect any European country, when they hear a boat of Syrian refugees is drowning, to run and try to save them. So I'm so sorry, but this is just not how the world works. You don't get to invade countries, especially as refugees and asylum seekers, cause mayhem and chaos in all of their nations that they're all reaping the negatives, the consequences of now, today, and they regret it. That's why they're shipping many Muslims back to the Muslim world. And then also cry when your ships are sinking and your Syrian sailors have abandoned, your Syrian captains have abandoned. Because you know if that ship was off the coast of Egypt, they would not go save them. They would let them drown. Hell, they might bomb them just to kill them. Because that's how you guys behave to each other. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that that's the truth.
Not just mercy, but the obligation, the legal obligations of states towards refugees.
I'd suggest that we all make sure we don't shift responsibility. There is a responsibility to everyone. That would include the state we're standing in now, wouldn't it? It would include all the states in this region. It would include the brother states. It would include the Ummah. It would include everybody. It wouldn't just be the Italians. Now, the Italians, by the way, and let me just finish this point.
That's a valid issue, but let me respond to it, because you mentioned the states of the region. It's a valid issue, but unlike the European countries, allow me to just make this point, unlike the European countries,
I'll respond to 2 points.
They are not parties to the 1951 Refugee Convention. So the legal obligations are, well, it's just a fact.
Conveniently, isn't it?
But I'll let you carry on.
But this means that countries that are signatories to the Refugee Convention get more blame and more assumption that they are going to have to hold more of the burden than countries that didn't. And I'm suggesting to you that nobody should be able to absolve themselves from blame. But if you go to Italy now, and I don't know when you were last there, but it is not the case that this is going well in Italy, either for the migrants who are arriving or for the Italian population.
Isn't it because the resources are not being poured into this? Let's face it, the policies are not there, the resources aren't there.
I see these people when they arrive, I follow their stories. It is not the case just that they don't, you know, the local populations in Italy I've been to Lampedusa, I've seen the boats coming in. The local populations are extremely generous. They are extremely kind to the people. Most of the populations in Europe, let's just not have this idea that Europeans are somehow incredibly cold-hearted. Countries in Europe have taken in a lot of people, and they are trying to deal with a very big problem very swiftly.
Hi, I'm Hamad Abu Hawash. I'm a senior at Georgetown University. And my question is to Mr. Douglas Murray. And before I ask my question, I just want to say, you said no sound bites, but then you said the developing world cannot move to the developed world. I don't know what that's about.
I said it before.
My question is, since you brought up migration from the developing world, I'd like to ask you this. Every year, the developed world sends about $300 billion of aid to the developing world, but the developing world sends back trillions in debt repayments to the developed world. Now, don't you think that this is the main reason why migrants are moving to Europe? Because money is moving out of the developing world. Wealth is leaving the developing world and moving to the developed world, to build on what Lamont Hill said. Don't you think this is why people are moving to the Western world, to the developed world?
Well, no, I don't. Again, I repeat the fact there are no simple answers. And if it was simply the fact that you could, I don't know, do a debt default or something and solve the whole migration issue, then that would be great. But it just isn't the case. You think that if for instance, all African countries were allowed to default on debt, that they'd become burgeoning, flourishing societies? You think that the problem across, for instance, sub-Saharan Africa isn't just unbelievable greed and theft by politician after politician? You think that if you just wrote off the debt, that would stop being an issue and everyone would become transparent and clean in their dealings with money? I mean, the problems are much deeper than this. They're much deeper than just a simple solution like that. As, if I may just add quickly to the previous two comments, the late, very distinguished American diplomat Daniel Patrick Moynihan had a wonderful rule he came up with, known as Moynihan's Law, where he said that human rights, claims of human rights violations often happen in exactly inverse proportion to human rights violations. That is, you hear about them in the countries that are most free. And before long, you can end up with the presumption that the most free countries are the ones who are most abusive of human rights. And this happens with the case when we talk about our leaders and the ones... It's all very well. We can talk about the Trump administration. We can talk about the democracies and so on for all we like. We can all make criticisms, and we all should. But, okay,
briefly.
Mr. Putin, what are you going to do about him? What are you going to do about the mullahs in Iran? What are you going to do about the House of Saud in Saudi Arabia? You see, what we end up with is this situation. We go, oh, Mr. Trump, Mr. Trump. We can all do that. Believe me, I can riff on Trump
again, you're being
all
quite
day.
selective, aren't you?
What are you going to do about the people you can't do anything about? Are you going to ignore them? Are you going to give them a pass? Or are you just going to enjoy beating up on the democracy?
I hate to have to interrupt you.
So I'm going to talk briefly about my mother's experience as an immigrant, and I want to touch here on something that Mark Lamont Hill said, this power of education and telling people how refugees fit into the wider context of economic development. Here's why I'm very skeptical about that. Because when my mother arrived in the UK and her parents arrived in the UK, people still called them dirty packies. When she had graduated from Oxford University, she was still a brown person who was not seen as a citizen, right? So to what extent can we really sell this idea that being educated or fitting X, Y, and Z criteria is what you need to do as a refugee for people to humanize you? The inherent problem with these people is that they don't humanize you. You can't fulfill your oppressor's criteria so that they see you as human. So how do you humanize people?
Dehumanizing refugees, thank you very much. And with this, let me go to you, Douglas Murray. Because much of your argument, Douglas, seems to be about the us versus them, the fact that, we have our own values, our own Britishness, our own virtues, and they will come to our shores with their values, their traditions. You seem to almost suggest that they come to your countries with a lesser breed of values.
No, I don't think I said that at any point, and that's another time you've tried to put something in my mouth.
So when you talk about the difference in values, what do you suggest?
Look, first of all, I didn't say that. I said that there are challenges because we do know that there are challenges, and let's just be frank about this. I mean, for instance, I've been in the Gulf for the last week or so. I see more burqas in my home city of London than I have seen in the Gulf in recent days, certainly here in Doha. Now, I can't say I'm delighted by the sight of more and more burqas in London. Do I feel any hatred of the people who wear them? Of course not. Of course not. But I can't say I'm elated by it. And definitely there are times I think, what percentage of burqas in this area becomes like not that pleasant for everyone else.
But again, is it all down to burqas? Because again, you're not asking people with other traditions whether they care about the sight of people drinking alcohol or showing up in bikinis. Again, it's a very
we could in Britain
Western-centric viewpoint.
I'm not. I have to say, you're going to bark up the wrong tree if you think you're going to persuade a Brit that we should stop drinking alcohol because of people arriving in our country. I mean, that's not going to happen. These things are all a bit of give and take.
That you bring your own traditions that don't quite fit with theirs.
Well,
they don't.
Yeah, there are, as I said, and before we got all confrontational, which you did from the get-go, I said what the problem is here is that these things are all rubbing against each other. And in that situation, you have to work out what things you're willing to give up, which things you're willing to compromise on, and which ones you're not. You're not going to persuade the Brits to massively change their culture, but let me just make the point. Every single society has certain aspects of it doesn't want to give up. This one will. In Qatar, this one will. Everyone does. So please don't try to make this a kind of bigoted European thing. That would be a very dishonest way to. That would be a very dishonest way to represent this debate.
Just answer this question directly if you can. Which of your values are you most afraid to lose? Which ones are most threatened by the arrival of refugees?
Freedom of speech. It's the first one. Oh, you think that's not a problem?
I mean,
you think that's not a problem?
But
you think? Sorry, no. Let me pick up on that. Let me pick up on that. It's very easy to snigger. It's very easy to snigger about this until you've had friends shot in a newspaper office. It's very easy to laugh about that until it's happened to people you know.
Is there an over-exaggeration, Douglas, do you think, in the West, this fear of Islam or anything that looks so different to us?
No, I mean, the society I'm from is one of the most pluralistic and diverse societies on earth. You couldn't get a larger range of people of different backgrounds and ethnicities and languages than you have in Britain.
And
Which
it's a
is
rich
why,
country.
once again, if I may push back against this thing you are pushing, which is that these are sort of uniquely bigoted, unwelcoming societies.
Not at all.
The evidence on this part of the stage would suggest that Britain is not,
If
for
anything, I'm
instance.
giving you the
So-
chance to tell us, from your
so-
perspective, what you find threatening or not about
I'd
refugees coming
suggest,
to England.
let me answer that by broadening it, if I may. My suggestion would be, if we're to arrive at any kind of common understanding on this, is that we agree that, for instance, where there are people who pretend that everyone who arrives is a terrorist is barking mad, okay? We can agree with that, but don't laugh at people with serious concerns about serious security concerns either. Because,
what?
Well, because, you know, we had this in 2015 when certain officials in Europe said the likelihood that anyone coming on the boats among the 1.5 million people who arrived in Germany are going to be violent in any way is total, you know, xenophobic fantasy. And everyone laughed until people started letting off bombs, until, like in Ansbach in Germany, they just had a suicide bombing outside a wine bar. And it just stopped being quite so funny. So all I'm saying to you is, you can agree with me that people who say that most people arriving are going to be violent are ridiculous. Yes, but also don't claim it's ridiculous for people to have serious and sincere concerns about what is happening. Because if you do, there's no way anyone's going
And
to
that
arrive.
is the reality, absolutely, Mark. Douglas Murray, we've been saying that governments have failed, policies have failed. On an individual level, what can we do? What will you do differently, thinking about this issue?
Firstly, by the way, migrants versus expats, there's a very clear reason. It's expected, rightly or wrongly, that expats don't stay in the country and bring up their families and stay for generations. The assumption with migrants is, currently has been in recent generations, that they are going to stay and that it's going to be a multi-generational thing. That's the assumption. But it's an interesting, important thing. Very quickly, just on the integration thing, I repeat, I think we've got to be very, very careful that we don't end up lambasting the freest and most generous countries. And I would just urge, as a call to, as it were, moral caution on this, urge you in this room and people watching, how many people have you made citizens of Qatar from Syria? How many? Okay, it's something worth thinking about, isn't it?
All right.
What did I say early on in the video when I was reacting? Consistently shocked by this man's sharpness. Honest to God, consistently. Consistently shocked by how impressive he is with how he speaks, to be honest with you. He's amazing. He's so on point. So on point. How many? How many Syrian refugees did Qatar take in? How many did any of the Gulf states take in? How many did all countries take in? Why? How many Palestinians did you take in? Why? Why? Sit with that for a moment. It tells you everything about your moral standing. You expect the most out of countries in the West who are now under threat by your way of life. Your way of life, by the way, that refuses to integrate, refuses to assimilate, and uses that as a virtue signal to say that you are better because you're preserving your culture from the East in the West. Guess what? Calling you a dirty Paki has nothing to do with the fact that you are a dirty Paki. Has nothing to do with the fact that you are a Pakistani. It has everything to do with the fact that Pakistanis are running around creating rape gangs and pedophilic rape circles in the streets of the UK. It has everything to do with the fact that they are marrying their cousins and causing genetic deficiencies on the streets of the UK. It has everything to do with Pakistan having a backwards culture and threatening the lives of everybody who is not a Muslim in Pakistan. Pakistan is not a moral idol to look up to. And so you have to have some leniency to understand that you might face persecution as a Pakistani migrant or refugee in the country you're staying in. And guess what? You very much are a guest in that land. No matter if you have the passport or not. You have to recognize that. You can't start behaving as if it is your place. Because here's the deal. Pakistani culture and British culture are not compatible. Pakistani culture and anyone else's culture is not compatible. Hence why Pakistanis in the Arab world are seen as third, fourth, and fifth class citizens. Because your culture is not compatible with most of planet Earth. People do not see you as equal to them. I'm not making a commentary on whether that's right or wrong. I'm displaying it for the reality that we live in. When you travel around the Arab world, Pakistanis are often used, and the Muslim world, even though they are Muslim, often used as nothing short of slaves, alongside Sri Lankans and Ethiopians, Sudanese, Somali, Filipinos, Bangladeshi people. You have to understand that that is an objective reality of the world that we live in. If you want to change it, change Pakistan. If you can't, be grateful for the fact that you even get to be in the UK. You should say thank you every single day. You should be fighting your community in the UK for the shitty behavior that they continue to act. I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you long time. Goodbye, Klats. Man, these comment sections are insane. What do you mean? Literally every comment is just like making fun of Jewish people, saying some stupid shit like it was promised to them 3,000 years ago, kicked out of 109 countries, white colonizers, and then a bunch of Jews in the comment section getting triggered and calling it anti-Semitism. It's bringing me down. Okay, well here, take this. What's this? It's a white colonizer shirt from thetravelingclat.com. And here, take a matching hat. Why do you want me to wear this? Because when we laugh in their faces, it triggers them more. Like for example, my grandparents were kicked out of Baghdad, Iraq. Right. So guess what? I'm yo Baghdadi. Get it? And boom, here's a hat with a kube on it. So you're saying when they make fun of us, just wear it? Precisely. What will trigger the stupid pro-pallies more than you proudly joining the 109 club for being kicked out of 109 countries? Or are you openly embracing being a white colonizer? Or even just acknowledging that everything was promised to you 3,000 years ago? Don't run from it. Embrace it. Bet. TheTravelingClat.com. Embrace the meme, embrace the Jew hatred, and laugh in their face. TheTravelingClat.com. If you don't want to buy any merchandise, the best way to support me is by donating on Buy Me a Coffee, my PayPal, or becoming a member on my Patreon. Your support is very much needed and very much appreciated. Thank you.